jilted lover George Davies put 4 slugs in his former fiancée Cleopatra Edmonds out of jealousy. Leaving her for dead, he then shot himself with his last bullet. He died, but miraculously his girlfriend recovered and lived a full life. Folks say his ghost now haunts that house, still angry for his mistake. Near the old Tombstone courthouse, prisoner John Heath was lynched by a Bisbee mob and hung from a telegraph pole for his part in the Bisbee massacre. Welcome to the Undertaker's Park. Last stop before you go to Boot Hill Cemetery. Boot Hill was so named since many people buried there died suddenly and violently and are buried with their boots still on. The ground was hard as cement, so the graves were dug very shallow, and rocks were piled on top of the graves to keep the varmints out. Back in the 1800s, most people were prepared for burial in their own homes, but this is Tombstone. Many people didn't have that option and were brought here to the Undertaker's parlor. They usually got a plain wood coffin and a wood headstone if they were lucky. Bodies were rarely embalmed in those days, so they needed to be buried quickly. The McLowry brothers and Billy Clanton, victims of the famous OK Corral shootout, were buried the very next day. Their headstone states that they were murdered on the streets of Tombstone. The bodies were starting to get pretty ripe and had to be buried in Boot Hill. Now several unmarked graves are found there.
Hey Doc, what are you taking me to Boot Hill? Haven't I been here long enough?
Patience, Billy. Everyone is in such a hurry nowadays.
Oh, that's cute.
Hey! Excuse me. I apologize. I think I'm allergic to dead people. Let's go next door for some real excitement. Did you know that Tombstone is called the town too tough to die? This old town has survived 2 major fires, the mines flooding, and even an earthquake in 1887. Just up the street at 5th and Allen, a bartender was emptying a keg of bad whiskey when it exploded from his lit cigar. Nearly the entire town was wiped out by that. But it was soon rebuilt, only to have another devastating fire a year later in 1882. This time it started across the street in an alley by the Grand Hotel, which is now known as Big Nose Kate's. How that fire started is still a mystery. Early on, the mines had started taking in water at 520 feet down, and in 1881, enormous pumps had to be installed. But fire struck again in 1886, destroying a pump house, which led to a chain reaction as many of the underground pumps were themselves flooded. That breakdown, combined with lower silver prices, resulted in the end of boomtown Tombstone. Now a surprising danger lurks below. Parts of the town are networked with old mine shafts. One collapsed on Tough Nut Street a few years ago, creating a hole big enough to swallow an entire tour bus. In fact, there are some who say that there's a mine shaft under this very building, but I do not believe that for a